So while we're waiting for her, allow me to introduce her. She's the executive director at Affirma Capital. She's focused on sub-Saharan Africa. She's based in Johannesburg. I think this is the first person, and in fact, the rest of the day, we will have South Africans who born and bred, so you can hear from local voices here. Prior to Affirmative Capital, she was a director at Standard Chartered Private Equity, having joined the platform in 2013. During her tenure with SCPE, she's been responsible for growth and capital injections, balance sheet restructuring, company turnarounds, minority rollout transactions, and has concluded 4 exits. She's managed investments in Exporting Trade Group, Eaton Towers, GZ Industries, and Lodestone Brands. Maruping, she began her career at Deloitte & Touche and is a member of the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants. Maruping, welcome. How are you?
I'm great. Hi, Timothy. How are you? And hi to all the delegates.
Thank you very much. I am doing really well. This has been an inspiring morning. I'm learning a lot. I have to tell you that I am learning a lot. I am thrilled. I think have we met in person before at any conference anywhere? Or is this the first time we actually look at each other?
I think this is the first time we're looking at each other, but we probably passed each other at some point.
Yes, Johannesburg is small, so it's probably because you look familiar. So thank you, guys. And just before we jump into the conversation, guys, thank you again for all your questions. Bonginkose, Zuki, Tubani, everyone who is engaging. We really appreciate it. Tapelo, all of the team. Thank you so much for engaging. We have a very engaged audience. People are very serious about this topic, Maruping. So I want to start. Firstly, I want to hear you pronounce your name. I'm very, very passionate about getting names right. Please pronounce your name for me.
You've gotten it right, Maruping.
Oh, Maruping.
So that's
okay,
perfect.
Cool. Yes, I am super passionate. I can't stand when people butcher people's names. So I really want to make sure I get it right. So as we go through this conversation, guys, we wanted to bring in brilliant finance minds, people who understand the other side. Throughout this entire day, you're going to hear from people on both sides relative to the U.S., Africa, but also on the other side from people who understand the technology, people who understand the finance, people who understand all sides. So I want to give you a moment to just share a little bit about your background. You look really, really young, So some people are probably looking at you going, "How this woman is she in varsity?"
Well, I'm a few months away from turning 40, so I receive it if I look that young.
Yes, awesome.
I'm on the cusp of turning 40. Looking forward to it. And maybe, Timothy, if I can share a little bit about my story and where I'm from, because I think
I'd love to hear that.
Provide some context as to why I think about deploying capital the way that I do. I think about the African opportunity the way that I do, and why I'm on this journey, because I'm a huge believer that in life you've got to have a why that anchors you. It's not good enough just to want to make money. I think that there's got to be something more substantive that kind of fuels you every day. I grew up in Soweto. I'm born and raised from Soweto, and grew up in really a fantastic home, incredible parents. My mom was a small business owner in the informal economy. My dad was in kind of financial services, worked for a large bank, so formal economy. And so I grew up within this really wonderful duality, of knowing firsthand the kind of entrepreneurial drive that fuels this country. Within Black communities across SA. I saw my mom as a one-woman powerhouse do her thing at a time when access to market was difficult, access to capital was difficult, and other institutional barriers were incredibly tough. And I saw her still run a business that I still believe to this day was impressive. And I saw my dad doing incredible work in advocacy because he believed so much that Black entrepreneurs should have access to funding. And so those two streams really shaped my value system. and gave me the conviction to begin the path that I'm on. And I'll never forget, it was early 2010. And I had big questions about what do I do now? I just, I qualified as a chartered accountant, I'd, done the things you're maybe meant to do. And I wanted to figure out what next. And Newsweek, which many of our American delegates would know, had published an article about the Africa opportunity, that something had shifted. There was an economic growth evolution that had crystallized. And it was clear that it was more than just a commodity boom. There was something happening within the local economy space. There was evidence of some sort of diversification, some sort of industrialization was happening. The demographics were shifting in a way that felt compelling. And I knew intuitively, because of my upbringing, because of what I grew up around, which many of us here growing up in South Africa, South African townships and even other parts of the continent we know, that it also had to be accompanied by a consumption story. There was something there. We were at that tipping point. And that's what prompted the entry into the world of finance. And eventually in 2013, I began my private equity career focusing on the continent. And why I think that background, Timothy, is so essential is because where I'm from, and I'm very proud of where I'm from, taught me and showed me that the absence of formal structures, formalized retail, traditional infrastructures doesn't stop thriving entrepreneurial activity, and doesn't stop groundbreaking businesses from being built, regardless of size. What I've learned since then on this career is that there are exceptional businesses that are billion-dollar entities started by local families across this continent that do their thing quietly and at scale, right? And so the combination of the kind of small and medium-sized businesses and kind of large, sometimes multinational businesses are at the heartbeat of what is happening across this continent. And that's some of what I'm excited to share today about how we translate the extraordinary Africa opportunity into real businesses, businesses that are, as we think of as a team, national and regional champions.
Thank you. I'm a very unconventional host, Maruping, and I want to have a gratitude moment. And then you gave a shout out to your parents, who you're so grateful for, who laid the pathways, probably mindset wise, culture wise, inside out. And I want people to just put into the chat someone that you're grateful for. Please put into the chat someone you'd like to just say thank you to, who's made an impact in your life, helping open you up to anything from Black excellence, African excellence, that the sheer idea that things are possible when other people around you don't think it's possible, but these people help you make things possible. So anybody you want to shout out now, I want to just thank I want to give a shout out to Spongile. I mean, yes, everybody on the entire team at EmpowerWorks has just been incredible, but I want to have a gratitude moment for you because you worked so hard, so many late nights just to position this platform and this conversation. So I'm grateful for everybody, but I'm shouting out one person. So let's talk a little bit about Affirma Capital and the work you guys are actually doing at Affirma Capital while people are giving that shout outs.
Thank you. And I love the unconventional approach. Thanks, Timothy. We are an emerging markets private equity business. We've been deploying capital across Asia, Africa, and the Middle East since the early 2000s. We are the old Standard Chartered private equity. We were part of a large emerging markets bank, and we spun out into an independent house in 2019. And within our Africa business, and that's the business that I'm in, Timothy, we've deployed just over $1 billion over the last 15 years.
Oh, wow.
We are what one would term a large cap PE house on the continent. So we back larger businesses. But I think that a lot of the lessons learned, I think, are translatable across scale. and across industry. What is central for us and how we've built this business and how we think about investing, everything centers on the African consumer. We're passionate about the many touch points we have into her, into how she is accessing goods and services, into how she has access to financial services. What is she eating? What is she drinking? And what are the underlying businesses that could be supply chain partners into the brands that she's engaging with? So that is always at the heart of what we do. How are we impacting the consumer story?
Can I just share something real quick? It's funny, as a writer, for some of you who have known Destiny Magazine and True Love um, and Forbes Woman Magazine, I've written a lot for female leaders. And every single time I write a column, I try to understand exactly who I'm writing for. What's her age? What makes her heart beat? What makes her wake up in the morning? What inspires her? And doing the research to understand this is vital to be able to land the messages for when I'm writing. So when I'm listening to you speak about you guys almost creating that kind of archetype of, understanding the African mindset, etc., I cannot stress just how important this is. And I didn't want to wait for the end of what our conversation to bring this back up because, what I feel as though people overlay international investors make assumptions too much and they don't understand the core DNA of who they're trying to connect with on this continent. And because it's an international conversation, I want to make sure that people are aware of how vital that is. Could you just highlight critically how important that's been to the success of your guys' work as you're doling out your billion?
To the institutional investors that have entrusted us with that capital. This is key, Timothy. I mean, if I could think of the one pitfall that we've seen multinational companies get wrong that have come into different countries on the continent, we've seen even South African corporates that have gone into different parts of the continent and businesses have sometimes imploded. It is when you are not conscious of your own biases, of what you believe good looks like. You could step into a country that you don't know, right? So I'm imagining that some of our delegates from the US maybe are coming to South Africa, Zambia, Nigeria, Kenya, DRC for the first time. And you might have a very set narrative of how a business in your industry that you know very well, in your local context, how that should work. And you don't quite understand how business cultures are different. You don't know that the route to market strategy is going to be different, that the infrastructure that you take for granted and how a product gets from farm gate to consumer, from factory to consumer is very different to how it would happen in Johannesburg, Nairobi, Kigali, Lagos. Sometimes what happens is even in the deal phase of trying to find local partners, in not knowing how to engage, who to engage, and what I think of, which sounds quite sinister, not knowing where the bodies are buried, that you can suddenly find yourself in a situation in a company you shouldn't be invested in. And only once things have imploded would you have people pull you aside and say, Timothy, how did you not know that you shouldn't be doing business with so-and-so? How did you not know that the biggest issue for that business was supply chain and you needed a different solution to make it work? How did you not know that your route to market strategy was flawed and that you maybe were targeting the wrong parts of the country, that the consumers were somewhere else? And this is why it becomes incredibly key that the first step is to never assume you know, and to ensure that the first thing you're doing before trying to sign contracts, before trying to get the deal done, before trying to mobilize the funding, is to understand the lay of the land, to understand the local culture, to understand how the business environment functions, to develop the relationship capital that gets you out of trouble and keeps you out of trouble, and to figure out how you can have those touch points that enable you to find the people that you might end up hiring as part of that business, the people that might end up being part of your customer businesses, the people that can help you solve problems. The assumption of what it should be like is what gets fingers burnt every single time.
Thank you. I feel as though one of the things I love about these type of platforms, Maruping, is that you come here for one thing, but you end up getting something else, right? Like, I don't even care if you're in a relationship, making these assumptions about your partner could get you in a lot of trouble. Let's go back to Affirma Capital. Maybe I should just allow you to continue your train of thought. I actually kind of cut you a little bit, and I'm sorry for that. But I felt like I wanted to highlight that. Do you want to continue in your train of thought? Sorry about that.
No problem, Timothy. I think that what is also very important to us, which I touched on very briefly, is we care about backing companies that either are or have the potential to become national and regional champions. And simply put, leaders in their industry. And they're part of the value chain of that industry. That is what we're passionate about. And we've done it at scale multiple times. And after working with those businesses, with their founders, with management teams, we've been able to either, elegantly exit, either through the sale of our stake or selling entire businesses. And some of the people we've sold these businesses to are global strategics. They're giants in industry from different parts of the world, which I think affirms a few things. It shows that African businesses are quality businesses. And I want us to have that confidence. They're exceptional businesses on this continent. And it also affirms that there's genuine interest, as demonstrated by the summit and by delegates that are dialing in from the US and other parts of the world, that there's something about this continent that warrants attention and gets attention from entrepreneurs, from investors, from financiers, from other parts of the globe, because the opportunity is credible and it's sizable.
I feel as though the rebranding of this continent, a friend of mine, Mr. Tebi Kalafeng, is just publishing a book about his travels across this continent and what he's learned and how he's sort of shifting the kind of rebranding of potential, because these biases that you're speaking about is largely sometimes caught up in the actual brand. I want to go back to your thoughts around building regional champions and the kind of thinking that you've kind of employed around that. Have you published any work around this, or is this just sort of your own kind of personal philosophy?
I haven't published anything around this. I mean, this is really, I'm really excited to share some specific examples of work that we've done within some of our investee companies, and
Thank you.
and the lessons learned. And I'd like to really take everyone into my confidence and treat this as an informal conversation. It's not just about talking about what's been fantastic and we've had some great wins, but also some of the scars that we have and mistakes that we've made that we've had to learn from, that I hope can be helpful to the folks that are here.
Super. Let's do that. Guys, while we are speaking, please sort of queue up your conversation, queue up your questions. I know that, in a platform like this, sometimes it can be intimidating to ask questions that, when someone who's, worked at this level. But I want to make sure that we do keep this a conversation. Let's go and talk a little bit. Let's go there. Let's talk about a couple of the failures. I mean, what are some of the things you guys have got wrong, and what did you learn?
One of the things we got wrong, and I think I dialed in quite late, and I think there was a conversation around the agribusiness space, is I had when I joined the business, I'd inherited an investment we'd made in the agribusiness sector. The investment had been made 2 years before I joined. And at the time of the deal being done, the company in question was a distribution business. So they were distributing fresh produce, largely fresh fruit from South Africa and eventually Zimbabwe into international markets, so into Europe and Asia. And the founders of the business had wanted to do a vertical integration play, which is just quite fancy. They were in distribution and running a good business. They wanted to own the underlying plantations. You know, they were tired of buying fresh produce from different supply chain partners. They wanted to own their own product. And so a big capital raise was underway in order to raise the money required to buy farms all over South Africa, which theoretically sounds good. You know, any business school graduate would tell you it kind of makes sense to own your value chain. I'd imagine many management consultants would have also sanctioned it, and that deal was done. What we did not know then, that we soon learned years later, is that you have to be very clear, one, on a couple of things. The first is, who are you backing? And what is the strategy that you are underwriting? And can the team, as it currently sits within that management, deliver on that strategy, particularly if it's a big shift or a big pivot? To go from being a distribution company into also being a primary agriculture company where the risks are fundamentally different, the capital requirements are extensive. It's not just about raising the capital that you need to buy these farms. It's about knowing that once you have the farms and you're planting all of these seeds, you probably have a pretty long lead time before those farms are starting to generate cash. So how are you funding your overheads and other working capital, requirements while you're waiting for those plantations to reach full scale commercial production? And what does it mean for the business? And what does it mean for you as the investor? Or maybe for some of our delegates here who are entrepreneurs, when you might be waiting several years to touch the cash. And how do you keep the business going? And so that was a really big lesson learned. And that is the reason, and my team are maybe rolling their eyes if any of them are here. That is what has sparked my obsession with working capital. It doesn't matter which business I look at. It could be telecoms, it could be retail, it could be fintech, it could be healthcare, whatever it is. I'm always obsessed with figuring out. It doesn't matter how good the growth looks on the top line. It doesn't matter if someone says we're making $1 of revenue and we're going to make $10 of revenue in 3 years. You have to know, how much does it cost you to make $1 of revenue? What does your cash conversion cycle look like? What do you need in the background to fund the business, to fund the overheads, to fund the salaries, to fund the suppliers?
So last time you told us about hair, makeup,
Ooh.
and all these things, and I assume
There's
that
someone who should be on mute.
Why the episode didn't play?
Kotso, please, thank you very much, Kotso.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
And that's what sparked, I think, my absolute laser focus on understanding a business holistically. The growth at the top is not enough. I think so often I hear entrepreneurs and investment bankers and advisors talk about, oh, this is exciting. This is a high growth business. This is a high growth opportunity. And not enough is spoken about. What is the working capital support? What do you need in reserves to help you until the business starts to generate cash?
Yes.
Strategies often take time. Strategies often take time to take off. So how are you funding yourself and supporting the vision until the cash starts to flow? What it also taught me to
quickly, wait, just quickly. Please. Can I just say thank you? I mean, as a person who owns their own business, cash flow capital is such a critical conversation. It's insane. We have a question from someone's hands raised. I think it's Kanye. Kanye, question?
Good morning, team. I hope you're well. Thank you so much for the fruitful session. I am picking up quite a few gems, quite a few seeds. I just wanted to ask, in the era of for AI, how does one leverage data analytics just to improve farm productivity And how do I use such tools to monitor market trends and anticipate changes in consumer demand? Because you did say there was a consumer boom just a little earlier in your presentation. So I just want to know, how can I, as an ordinary farmer or as an ordinary entrepreneur, anticipate these things and actually leverage them to ensure that my business has longevity and sustainability? Thank you so much.
Boom. Wow. We have serious people on this call.
We have, and and hashtag women in farming, love it, love it, love it. Such a critical sector. I think that during the course of these 2 days, there are going to be subject matter experts specifically looking at elements of the agricultural value chain. So I'm going to defer to those experts to give the specific guidance on which are the AI tools that are going to be effective, which are the platforms, and I believe some already exist around market intelligence, and I believe some of them are paid platforms, like subscription-based platforms for you to access that data. Some of those might be you pay in order to create your own proprietary data set of specific information you're looking for. And so I'm going to defer to that. My whole thing is I never want to say I know something I don't know.
Okay.
What my area of strength is strategy implementation, how to build something, how to expand it into other geographies, how to turn it around when it's not working, how to build teams that kind of get you to the quote unquote promised land, and the deployment of capital. That is what I do. The kind of nuts and bolts of agribusiness.
Okay.
Operational is not my area of strength.
Okay. Got it. So we're going to go back. I want to continue the conversation that you were, and I hope you don't mind as we're going through this, that I'm just kind of interjecting a little bit, because I wanted to make sure that while we keep on the pulse of what you're saying, that, we are, we are engaging people in the audience as well. As we shift a little bit to some of these other areas of your expertise that you were speaking about, I've found, for example, when it comes to this gap between when you are attractive for capital and when you can justify it. Like there's a space there when people can see a potential, but I can't justify it just yet. What's supposed to happen in that gap? And I don't know if I'm being super clear, but I will say that what I often find is you've got extraordinary, brilliant minds. You've got a market that's ready for your idea, but we cannot quite justify it yet. And you need capital to position you to be able to justify it. There's a little bit more you need to do before you capital ready. What should happen in that space?
That's an excellent question. It's the in between.
Yes, those in between spaces. Yes.
And to be frank, it can be really lonely in the in between.
Guys, so lonely.
Especially because depending on the pocket of capital you're trying to tap into, you'll have investors or debt funders that will tell you, this looks really interesting, we need more time. And you can be in a situation where you don't have the time, right? What you need is immediate funding, and that can be quite challenging. Maybe I'll share an example, Timothy, that maybe we could gain some insights from and maybe build on this.
Okay.
There's a company we invested in, I think some of the folks here would know, called ETG, Export Trading Group, and it was founded a few decades ago. It's an agribusiness company, but more on the supply chain side. So it aggregates commodities from across the continent, using its own proprietary warehousing and distribution infrastructure that they've built across multiple countries. And then they take all of this that they've aggregated from over 4,000 at the time of our investment, over 4,000 smallholder farmers, and they sell it around the world. So their service is one of aggregation, warehousing, processing, distribution, and unlocking market access. It's a phenomenal business. And when we had come into contact with the family, or multiple families that owned the business, it took 2 to 3 years of going back and forth until we felt we were ready to invest, because the business was there, the entrepreneurial vision and just the swagger of the founders was there. They knew their industry inside and out. They'd done the work. They developed relationships within whoever their end customers were. They'd done the heavy lifting to get to source, right? To build relationships at the smallholder farmer level, government level, multilateral organization level. They'd done all of that. What was not there was the kind of systematic, more structured business that we would need as an investor where we are to make it work. And so it began the process of 2 to 3 years of back and forth conversation, an active sitting with the founders, being on the ground, to help shape the story, help figure out how do we clean up the structure. You know, in many family businesses, sit all over the place and not always in a way that makes something easy to invest for an external party who's not a family member. There were certain decisions that might have been made around business lines that we felt were not core to the operation, that maybe needed to be cleaned up and carved out. There might have been a focus on certain geographies that we felt were not really making sense for where the business was going. There are a whole host of challenges around administration, around finance. I mean, at that time, we needed to even provide heavy lifting around how to get a budgeting and forecasting process in place. For a business that was doing exceptionally well, but didn't have the type of granularity around mapping financial performance and having a view of what does the future look like for us in the next year, 2 years, 3 years. So that type of longer term visibility is important to us as investors to develop a view. So all of this work was being done without any quote unquote payment or benefit. It's because we believed in the founders, we believed in the business, and we were willing to put in the work. And that is still our approach. I mean, I've worked sometimes with a founding team or a management team for a year, just to refine things, to provide free counsel, to sit and on a confidential basis, helping reshaping something until I feel now it's ready. Now, not everyone might have that access. And this is where, depending on the size of business and the type of funding you're accessing, reaching out for support helps. Incubation houses are there. You know, multiple national governments are providing some sort of support. Some of it is industry specific, some of it is not, around business plan development, forecasting or financial models that are being built, around cleaning up commercial strategy, around getting sure you have certain licenses in place. And some of that information is done by specific government agencies or by private organizations in that space. And I think it's important to know who that is for your geography and your industry, and to get the help. And once you're at a point where you feel that you're stable enough, it gives you greater confidence to engage with funders, depending on who those funders are, to get the money you need to take you to the next level.
Wow. That is so helpful, so insightful, especially because, again, that bridging gap phase often cripples people's hopes and dreams. Khotso has a question. It says, what are some of the effective entry strategies to break into the PVC and HDPE pipe manufacturing market in Botswana and the broader SADC region? Specifically, I'm interested in the strategies for gaining market share from established players, positioning the business competitively, and leveraging the region's economic landscape. insight, any insights on marketing, operational efficiency, etc., would be valuable. Any thoughts?
I mean, just for interest, Hoto, are you in the business already? Which geographies are you currently invested? Is it a business you already are in? Is it running with contracts, with customers? Because that then helps me know, what are we doing? Are we following existing customers into Botswana? Is there a team that you already have? Let's say South Africa is your home base. Is it a team that has any relationships in Botswana? Just a bit of color would help. I think specifics are so critical for crafting strategy for success.
We've just 90% done in building a 50 million pula manufacturing facility in Botswana, one, from our pockets. We are brand new into the space. We have a lot of insights in terms of Botswana itself, but we are brand new. We are a startup with a little bit of money to just to put it frank.
50 million pula is not a little bit of money. That's really sizable. So congratulations.
By God's grace, yes, we'll just say that. So there's an incumbent. They've been there for 25 years, but we know there's a lot of gaps in terms of their services, bad workmanship, bad advertising. When you are an incumbent, you tend to be an incumbent. So we know quite a bit in terms of what we need to do, but we just need to ensure that we hire the right people. The machines are arriving next week, Monday, from China. So we just want to make sure we put a proper strategy in place, at least in the first year, get market share of maybe 20-25%. This company makes it turnover around 2 or 2.5 billion pula a year. So we know there's a market, and they supply both South Africa and the SADC region, Angola, Mozambique, Zimbabwe. Yeah.
I mean, you Hoto, actually are answering your own question. So you already are you're already in the market. You already know that the incumbent is not quite meeting expectation for local customers. You already know that you are targeting, I think, a very gentle market share coming in. I would actually say maybe 15, maybe 10 to 20% should be the target market share within the first 1 or 2 years. And the reason I say that is it gives you a little bit of time to settle into the business. And again, maybe I can give an example to justify what I'm saying. I was overseeing a factory build here in Wadeville, South Africa. Wadeville is in the industrial east of Johannesburg. It is an aluminium can manufacturer, manufacturing cans for beverage players, the likes of Coca-Cola, Heineken, AB InBev, etc. We had invested in that business in Nigeria on a first mover advantage, and had decided that we wanted a regional expansion strategy. And South Africa made sense. It's the largest beverage market or can market on the continent. And so we followed our customers from Nigeria to South Africa because they were multinational customers like Coca-Cola, and built the factory. And it's a 1 billion rand facility, 1 billion rand factory, complex manufacturing site. And what I saw firsthand is that the first thing is, when you're undertaking a big capital project, you've got to know who you're doing it for. There's got to be customers that you've already got in place, preferably contractually if it's possible. And again, industry dynamics are different, so that by the time you've commissioned the facility, you're producing for X, you're producing for Timothy, you're producing for Hoto, you're producing for Maruping. And that gives you a bit of a cushion, right? Because the minute you start commercial production, you already know who the customer is. What was also, I think, very clear from the onset is it took longer than I thought for us to have the business settle down in South Africa. We had the Nigeria business that had run for almost a decade. And so we thought, running a business in Nigeria is really tough. South Africa is going to be a dream. We're going to put up this factory in Wadeville and it's just going to run. We're going to be printing cash from year one. That is not what happened. Despite having an extraordinary team from our head office in Nigeria at the factory, with 2 factories, actually world-class facilities, there were specific challenges we had here. We had challenges around ensuring we could have the right team, not just at the management level, at the middle management level. We had challenges around getting work visas and other permits to ensure that the experts we needed from elsewhere could come in and undertake a 3 or 4 year skills transfer to ensure that factory was running at spec. We had underestimated some of the operational challenges of running a business here. We were hit very quickly with electricity, water, and other municipal challenges, despite being in an industrial zone. We had underestimated the fact that when you have a new team running a new line in a complex site, regardless of how exceptional our engineers in this country are, it takes time for that norming and storming process to occur, where people kind of find their feet, get the culture right. And from where your kind of wastage levels on the manufacturing line are coming down to acceptable levels, margins are stabilizing, and your output is steadily increasing, and you're getting to that stable business. That took longer than we thought. We'd also underestimated supply chain. We had raw materials that we needed to bring in from KZN into the plant, but there was a bigger raw material thing that needed to come out of China and South Korea. And we'd underestimated what that would mean in terms of certain supply chain bottlenecks, and all of that affecting what we produce and get it to customers. And all of this stuff was happening in real time while still trying to figure out the right management structure, the right operational structure. And we did not learn from what I said earlier. We thought we were going to do a plug and play. We thought, we're kings in Nigeria. We're going to do this so easily here. And we didn't realize that labor dynamics are different, and that we couldn't have the same line formation here. We couldn't have the same shift system here. We couldn't just do a plug and play. We needed to approach this differently. So again, I think I'm saying a lot of what you probably already know, but the first thing is customer first. Who is driving the engagement to get those initial contracts bedded down? That commercial certainty is going to give you room to breathe. And the second is it doesn't need to be 0 to 100 within the 12 months. Use that first 12 months for the mistakes to occur. Use that 12 months to ensure that the line you've installed is now operating seamlessly. Use the 12 months to make sure you get not just the right executive team, but you have the right middle management structure with folks that have experience. Some of them might come from the incumbents. You might not even want them from the incumbent because they might bring culture and other things that don't work. But without a strong team, you're not going to get there. And then also use that initial 12 months to figure out if you need partnership. That could come from a private equity investor or another type of investor. There are a number of high net worth individuals, I'd imagine also in bots, that might be able to bring in that expertise that helps you make this easier. And why I say that of bringing in an investor, or maybe it's a board dynamic, maybe it's not bringing people into the capital structure, but bringing them into the board, is you don't do this alone. This idea that the factory is enough, it's not enough. You've built a world-class facility, not enough. Getting people who help you navigate the delicate politics of doing business, very, very helpful. Getting people who know how to get the business to the next level now that you've commissioned the plant, very helpful. And that might be 1 or 2 board appointments. It might be a chairperson appointment. It might not necessarily be an equity investor. I don't know if that provides a little bit of very, very high level context that is helpful.
A lot of English, Maruping, a lot of English. Thank you very much.
What I will say is that after everything I described with my portfolio company, we got it bedded down. It's really at the top of its game, exceptional management team in place, very happy customers, long-term contracts over 5 years. They're outperforming targets. It's
How
doing
do we
phenomenally
how do
well,
we
and
how do
it's
we partner with you then? How do you charge? How your services work? Maybe we can discuss that after this and embark on this journey together.
no. I think happy for you to find me on LinkedIn or to write to Sibongile. She can help us exchange email addresses after the session.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Coach. So this is what this entire session is about. It's about having real conversations, and to the extent that we can't solve everything on a webinar or in a presentation, we want to facilitate these engagements. So, Bongile, please, she put her email into the chat now so you can share so that we can make these facilitations. We're not sometimes as we are in these conversations, and especially in the middle of these conversations, it does seem overwhelming. It seems like a lot. So thanks, Corso. Thanks, Maruping. I think we have a question from Kanye as well, and then I'm going to give you a chance to, Maruping, to kind of wrap up shortly. Okay, Kanye?
Thank you so much. I just wanted to ask, when you were talking about the importance of developing relationships, in the case of not having enough cash flow, I just wanted to ask, what kind of strategies does one use to build those strong relationships with suppliers and distributors and customers, on the back of they just started the business. They don't have much to secure these relations. So what is the best way to secure these relationships, again, to ensure longevity and so on? Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you. That's a very, very good question. And I'm maybe going to come with an unpopular answer. I think that so much of the narrative around business building is to go from 0 to 100 in 1 second. That, that there'll be 10 customers immediately from starting, or that you'll knock on the door of the first 1 or 2 suppliers and they're willing to extend terms, even if you might not yet have the balance sheet or maybe funding behind you that gives them the comfort. And I think that the reality is sometimes, and often I think quite different, is you need the one, right? You need that first customer. You need to also, I think, look at your network. And sometimes network isn't just about friends and family or former colleagues or people you've had as professional acquaintances before you've started the business. It's really being very transparent with the people in your circle and wider circle, professional and personal, around the help you need. Who can you introduce me to within this customer? Who can you introduce me to within this supply chain partner? Who do you know at FNB or Standard Bank within the working capital team that can help me figure out how I get a working capital facility that makes sense for the size of my business and where I am, or who can sit with me over a coffee and explain how to navigate the application process? And those types of asking for the help front, I think, is incredibly important, and it goes hand in hand with saying, for your sector, for your segment of the value chain in your sector, who are the agencies, support groups on LinkedIn, non-governmental organizations and advocacy groups, whether it's within the DTI, etc., that provide that support, that provide that connectivity, that provide the type of relationship access. And to start there, even if some of these organizations feel clunky and inefficient and difficult to navigate, but it's always about asking for help. Just yesterday, I reached out to a former chairman of one of my investee companies because I had an incoming regarding an investment opportunity. And I remembered he had some sort of historical relationship with that company. And still to this day, when something lands on my desk or I go to a meeting, think about who in my wider network is a touch point that can help me figure out how to navigate this thing. And we had a conversation over 15 minutes briefly. And then I understood what I needed to know, that the advisor And these other individuals were not telling me. I suddenly got the background as to what was going on, and I suddenly knew the key issues that I need to take into consideration in order to build the opportunity. And it just took a left field conversation. So that is perhaps a little bit more philosophical in terms of advice, but I'm a huge believer of who's in your circle of influence. Ask for the help. I've never had someone knock on my door that I've said no to, or who I don't direct to someone who I think is better able to assist. So that's the first thing. The second is you just need the one. You need the one customer. Once you have the one customer, you take the one customer, the term sheet, the contract, the order, you take it to the supplier. You demonstrate and you leverage off of the strength of the name of the customer, how you can now start to potentially have a relationship with the supplier. The supplier might tell you no, or they might tell you, we need X, we need the cash. You take that term sheet, contract, invoice, order to a bank or some sort of credit provider or some sort of, equity financier, whatever it is that is applicable to your industry, because funding models are different at an industry level, to say, but I have a customer, Maruping is my customer, Timothy is my customer, here is the paperwork. How can I access what I need to be able to service Timothy? Because Timothy is legitimate, credible, existing entity. These are the terms. Here, I can show you assigned something. And that begins the chain. And that one transaction, again, depending on industry, depending on how many Timothys you need to make your business plan work, helps you build momentum. Because people still feel very wary of trusting someone without some form of track record. So you just need to be building the track record with that one transaction, that one sale.
Thank you.
And that might not sound very sexy, but it builds momentum and helps build the history that enables you to now get much broader support and much bigger support from suppliers and other folks to build a bigger business.
Kanye, hope that was helpful. Was that helpful to you? Okay. I want to go.
Pardon, I just had a lag. Thank you so much. It was very fruitful. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Zuki, can we make your question? We've got literally like 4 minutes and 29 seconds to go. So Zuki, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. Hi, Maruping.
Hi, Zuki.
So my question is, I'm currently now working with an EPC. I don't know if you guys are in the space of renewable energy.
We're in the space of electricity distribution in Zambia, and that company has some renewable assets as part of its generation. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so because my question is, I'm wanting to equity finance for the project, because what these guys do, they basically construct, we work together, and then at the end they sell their shares for someone to operate and maintain the plant. So I've been very unlucky in the DFIs and IDCs, those type of places, to actually get equity funding, particularly because I'm new in the space. So my balance sheet is not looking great. So now I wanted to know, because you are in the equity space, I just checked your LinkedIn profile now, would there be an appetite for that for you? Or could I discuss with you where else I can actually get this private funding, except for the government institutions?
I'd be happy to chat. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. For us, it's not a fit for us, right? Because we invest in kind of mid-stage or mid businesses that have been around for a while, where there's an existing cash flow profile. It's been around for some time, because we're not taking that business and taking it to whatever the next level is in terms of its growth story. And typically we would come in after something has been quote unquote de-risked by more patient capital. And so my heart just broke. That's why I smiled when you said, but the DFI said no, because my view is that development funding institutions, whether they are from South Africa, the broader region, or internationally, are best placed to help de-risk businesses by providing capital that is more patient at the beginning of the journey, so that you have the support. And they also have extraordinary teams, particularly within the renewable space, who help you just refine the business model. And once you get to that inflection point where you need more capital, and you will, because you will grow, that is when traditional private equity players like our firm and firms, there are many firms like ours, then come in, because it makes sense. And maybe that's something, Timothy, that would be helpful to the audience of folks looking for funding. Equity is a broad term. There are different types of equity funders. We come in much later, when something has already been around for a while. And that's what we do. But there are people that come in super early, and they love that. They love to help at that initial phase, and are willing to take on a different risk profile and enjoy working with an early stage business and do that effectively. And there are people who come in after that, but before we come in. There are different types of equity funders. And I think it's important that entrepreneurs don't feel defeated, because if you're knocking on the wrong door, you're coming to Maruping for the Maruping Incorporated for the 5 million rand check for an early stage business, but Maruping Incorporated only does 50 million rand check for a business that's been around for 5 years, you're going to feel defeated speaking to me, when you shouldn't. It's just, you should have spoken to Timothy. So it's about mapping the funding requirement with the right funders. And again, I hope, Timothy Sibongile, that there will be someone coming either from DTI over these next 2 days, or from another applicable government agency, talking about what the state is doing, either directly through providing funding access or through its funding partners, to give entrepreneurs doing the good work within the green transition the leg up they need to build businesses that work. Because I promise you, Zuki, once you get that business up and running, the funding available from larger funds is there. We just need to help you find the solution for the early stage.
All right.
So I'm
Thank you
hoping
very
that will
much.
be in the agenda, Timothy, over the next 2 days.
Awesome. Yes, thank you very much. Zuki, we really appreciate the people who are on this call, who are go-getters, who are out there to conquer and to move forward. I want to hand over to you, Maruping, to kind of give us your closing statements, your departing sort of comments about, your thoughts around this champion mindset that we set up for you, as we sort of wrap up. And thank you for being so generous.
Thank you so much, Timothy, and wonderful to interact with the delegates today. I think in closing, I want to say that the Africa opportunity is real and it's significant. Market fundamentals are not enough. So the size of population growth, huge economic momentum, all of that good stuff that we've been reading over the last 10, 12, 15 years. It's credible data. Directionally, it's truthful, but it's not enough to build businesses with scale, and businesses that are profitable, and businesses that do the things we want them to do. And so in closing, I just want to remind us of a couple of fundamentals that are key. Who are you backing? Make sure that you're partnering with folks that share your values and that you're aligned in what you want that business to do. Be very clear on the problem you're trying to solve. Be very clear that the opportunity you're trying to unlock, has some element of differentiation, that there's something unique about the business, and your ability to do something special with it. And it's not just about building profitable businesses. It's about building profitable businesses that are sustainable. I care about the fact that when we sell a business to someone else, that we leave them with something that works. We leave them with something that they can continue to take care of. continue to keep track of businesses we've sold, because I'm proud of the work that we've done with our partners, with those management teams and with those funders. So let's have a long-term view around building this continent. There's a lot of good work to be done, and as evidenced by the folks that I've interacted with, many of you are already doing that tremendous heavy lifting. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And thank you so much for your belief in this continent. What a beautiful, beautiful voice. If you were to dedicate a song to this continent, a poem or anything, what would it be before we let you go?
Oh, that is so tough. That's so tough, Timothy. Like my mind just went blank, but I know it would be jazz. I just don't know what would be, just don't know the specific song.
No problem.
John Coltrane.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
There
I'm
you go.
with you. That's it. Thank you, Hotso. John Coltrane. Yeah, I love Supreme because I have great love for our continent. So I think that's the one.
Love
Love
Supreme. Love Supreme.
That's the song, Timothy. Hotso, thank you for helping me.
So to everyone, thank you again. We are going to go for a lunch break. We'll be back at 1 o'clock. Can I get you guys to commit with a show of thumb that you're going to come back at 1 o'clock? Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the thumbs. Thank you for the thumbs up. I want you guys to take a break, have a quick lunch, come back at 1 o'clock. We're going to start back. Our U.S. colleagues should be waking up shortly. It's about, what time is it now? Yeah, it's about 6 a.m. their time. They should be logging on soon. We're going to be able to engage, do some networking, meet some of our colleagues that side. But thank you guys so much for engaging. I really appreciate it. Before you go, Maruping, can you put your website into the chat for us, please?
Sure, I'll do that.
Yeah, thank you very much. And for everybody who's been so locked in, all of you guys, thank you very much for all your questions. We are super excited about the second part of the day. Enjoy your lunch. We'll see you guys back at 1 o'clock. We've got two powerful speakers from this side before the U.S. takes over, and I can't wait to introduce you to them. So, Maruping, thank you very, very much. You're such a star, and I'm really happy we got a chance to finally connect. And I'd really love to have a lunch to explore collaboration further when we're all back in Joburg, okay?
Thank you. Thanks, Timothy. Thanks, Wongile. Bye, everyone.
Yeah. Bye-bye, guys.
Thanks a lot, Maruping.
Awesome. So I'm going to put onto the screen, during the break, we will be sharing, just to give you an idea what to expect after the lunch from our Africa side, and then our US side, as I said, takes over at 2 p.m. As they are waking up. So feel free to put any thoughts into the chat as you go for break. But otherwise, I will see you back at 1 o'clock. Thank you so much. And thank you to the EmpowerWorks team. Thank you.